Hi, in this exercise, we are going to go over how to build a slide template from the ground up. Now, before we dive in how to get into the mechanics of actually building a slide template, I first just want to show you the slide template that I use when creating slides for this course. As you can see, this is a customized template that I'm using that I built completely from the ground up, specifically to meet the needs of this course. And as I go through different slides, you can see that there are these grid lines that I have here. And you will also notice that most of my content will always fit within these grid lines. If I go to, say, this slide over here, you can see that there's two sections and that all the content falls into both of these two sections. Or this slide, you can see that there's three different sections and there's grid lines for each one of these sections and all the content falls really well into that section. Or for this slide, there's five different columns and all the content falls into those columns and maintains the principle of alignment. Now, having your own customized template will save you a lot of time in the long term, just because it allows you to be able to build out very professional looking slides in a short amount of time. I'll give you an example. For instance, say like I just wanted to create a typical slide you'd see. I'd select three columns. Here's my analysis. I would delete this middle column. I'd drag this content bar over. I'd add a graph into it, and then I'd put my key takeaways in over here. That took me, I think, like 3 seconds. Say like I wanted to have an agenda. Let's say that I want to have an agenda with 4 different sections. I'd go over here, choose agenda 5. I'd type in I want my intro section, then I want my analysis section, and I want my analysis section to have more weights. So then I'd skip one and I'd then go to my implementation section. Hope I spelled that right. Then I run my conclusion. Go ahead and I delete that. I'd take this section and I'd bring it down. I would snap it to that grid line. I'd highlight all this and then I would give that color. And there you go. That took me maybe 10 seconds to throw that together. Let's say if I wanted a little bit more complicated slide, I wanted something that like a matrix. I wanted to have a 3x3 matrix, but I wanted to have the middle row and column to be bigger. I would go ahead and I'd select my 4x4 layout. I'd first go ahead and I delete this 4th row. I would then bring this, or this 3rd row, I'd bring this 2nd row down to where the previous 3rd row ended. Then I want my middle column to also be bigger. So I delete this 3rd column. I'd highlight everything in the 2nd column and I would extend it to where the 3rd column ended. I'd take my title, I'd give it a title for column 1, a title for column 2, and a title for column 3. Oops. Okay, and I'll just go through, I'll populate these different content areas with whatever text that I'd want to populate them with. I'll go ahead and I'll color these. So color these as well. And I'll fill these. And there you go. That took me maybe 15 seconds to throw that together. Or say like I wanted to make an executive summary, I can very easily go to make a new slide. I choose the 3-column layout. I'll go ahead and add an icon for each of the different agenda items I want to go over. Select this as the first item. I'd add another icon. I'll have this be my second section item I want to go over. And then finally, I would I'll add this icon as my third item. Okay, I want to make those a little bit bigger. Bring all those up. Put it right there. Then I want to get the section, each section title. So section 1, section 2, section 3. Highlight these. Bring things down. And there you go. I have the 3 sections for my executive summary that I want to cover. This, being able to have a template like this is super powerful. It allows you to create slides very fast and effectively that look really good. And it's one of the reasons why this feature in PowerPoint is one of the reasons why PowerPoint is so great for making professional looking slide decks. However, without any further ado, let's get into making our own slide template. Okay, so before we get started, I recommend that you pull up this slide and this slide just so you have it at the convenience, because we are going to be using these measurements to be able to create out our slide template. So open up a new PowerPoint presentation. I have one here. As you can see, it just has all the default layouts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to View. I'm going to click on View. Then I'm going to go over to Slide Master, and I'm going to click on Slide Master. And what Slide Master allows me to do is it allows me to edit my templates. And so one thing that you should know about Slide Master is it is cascading, which means that if I do something on this slide, it will cascade down to all of its child slides. So for instance, if I put a shape on this slide, if I put a shape on this master layout, all of the other layouts will also have that shape. And if you put something on a slide, for instance, if I put this on this layout right here, and then I go back out to my deck, you can see that shape appears. However, I can't edit it. So this is how you create a template. So we'll start off with we'll create a new layout. And I'll go ahead and I'll delete everything. And before we start getting into all these measurements, I really quickly want to show you how I was able to come up with these measurements. So PowerPoint has something called the Align tool. And what's great about the Align tool is it very quickly can allow me to take a bunch of items and then create perfect alignment between them. So say like I know that I want that to be this margin, and then I have another content box right here. Maybe I'll just make these a little smaller. And I want to get these Let's say I want to take 4 of these. So I want that to be my ultimate left, and I want this to be my ultimate right. Then I can go ahead and select all these. I'll come up to shape format. I come over here, and then there's this align tool. And then I can distribute these horizontally, and it perfectly spaces out everything for me. This is great for just whenever you're building out a slide. I use this all the time. But what's nice about having pre-made layouts is you don't constantly have to do this over and over again. So I just want to give you guys a sense for how I made these measurements. And so when you want to create your own measurements in the future, this is the process that you'd go through to do that. Let's delete all this. What we first want to do is we'll go ahead and start to add, we'll want to add grid lines in each one of these areas. So first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a line and I'm just going to add a horizontal line. And then I'm going to go on to format shape. And then once I go to format shape, I can then go over to size and position, and I can go ahead and I can edit its position. And so referencing this document, I can go ahead and I can enter in these different positions to be able to get my line to where I want it to be. And this line is just a temporary placeholder for right now, but I'll go to position and I want this to be the bottom of where my lead line is. So I am going to go to vertical position and I'm going to enter in 9.96, and that's going to move that where I want it to be. Then I'm going to create another line. I'll do the same thing, going back to vertical position. This time I want it to be at 7.21. And that will put a placeholder for where I want my grid line above my footnotes. Now I'm going to add in my content area where I want that. So copy another line. And I'll go ahead and I'll put in the vertical measurements as 1.39 for the top. And then for the bottom margin for the content area, I'm going to put in 7.13. And that will give me my bottom area. Now for the horizontal margins for the content area, I'll insert another line. And then I'll go to format. This time I'll go to horizontal position. And I'm going to want to put that at 0.33 for my left. And then $13 for my right. So I have about 1/3 of an inch as my margins going all around. Okay, so now I have, oops. Sorry about that. Let's try that again. I want my horizontal position to be at 13. There we go. Okay, so I have these lines here, and what these lines are placeholders for me to add in grid lines. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to grid in guides, and then I'm going to go to add a horizontal guide. And this is going to create a new horizontal guide at the center of my page, and I'm going to pull it up and I'm going to try to get it to line up as best I can with this line up here. And then I'll do the same thing for the other lines that I have. And sometimes you're not going to be able to get them to snap on perfectly. That's okay. Play around with it, see what works for yourself. I'm wanting to add a vertical grid line. I do the same thing. I go to add vertical grid line, and that'll give me a vertical grid line I can use. Add one more. There we go. And now I have these grid lines, and you can do different things with them. You can color them different ways if you want to. I'm going to just take these grid lines down here and I'm going to color them gray. And what's so great about grid lines is objects will automatically snap into grid lines. So it makes it much faster to be able to add objects while maintaining alignment in your slide. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete all of these. And here we have a blank slide. Here we have a blank layout now. I'm going to duplicate this layout and hold on to it just so we have a blank one. But now I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to start to add content areas. So going to Slide Master, you can insert a placeholder and you can then go ahead. We'll start off by adding a lead line. We'll get rid of this. Go home. Bring the alignment to the bottom. I'm going to make this size 20. I'll make this size 24. Choose whatever size you'd like. And I'm going to call this lead line. So there you go. Now when we select this layout, we will have a lead line here with those grid lines. So if you want to see what that looks like, I'm going to go to New Slide. I'm going to go to Layout, Custom Layout 1. And here we go. We can add whatever we want in our lead line. And we have all these grid lines for our reference. So going back to Slide Master now, going to insert in another content holder. We'll have this to be our main content here. I'm going to bring this down to size 16 for everything. And so this is where content can go. And then finally, I'll go and I'll add one more content holder down here. I'll make this text size 10. Get rid of the bullet points. And then I'm going to call this footer. So right there, we have the basis for our slide. And I can add a new slide. I have this content box. I can put whatever kind of title I want as my lead line. I can have whatever content I want here. I can put sources or whatever I desire down here. Maybe I want to have a graph instead, so I can enter in a graph. So that is our first layout. Returning back to Slide Master. Now we are going to create a 2-column layout and then a 3-column layout. So I'm going to go back to, I can duplicate this slide, this layout. I'll delete the middle content bar, the content area we have there. Okay. So this is going to be -3 inches from the center. And this width is going to be 6 inches, or 0.6 inches. This is going to be minus 2.5 inches from the center. This is going to be plus 1.91 inches from the center. And these gutters are going to be 0.6 in width. So we'll do the same thing that we did before. I'm going to add a line right here. We're starting with 2 columns. I'm going to go to size and position. I'm going to go to horizontal and I'm going to change it from center. And then we want this to be minus 0.3, and I'll put it right there. And then we want our other to be 0.6 inches away from that. So if we take the horizontal position from the center, we will want it to be at 0.03, 0.03. And then we can go ahead and we can insert our content box, before we insert a context box, we will want to add a vertical grid line here, and then another vertical grid line here. Go ahead and delete those. I'll insert a content box. Put one right here. I'm just going to bring the text size down. Okay, and now we have our 1-column content box. Now we have a 2-column content box. Let's go ahead and make a 3-column content box, or a 3-column layout. So I'm going to pull this down, do the same thing, delete this content area. Going to add a line, the format, size, and position. I'm going to change this to from center. Want this to be negative 2.5. Make another one. And then we want this one to be at 1.91. Oops. Sorry, we want the horizontal position to be at from center at 1.91. And we make another one of these lines. We then want it to be at negative 2. Want to be at negative 2.5 plus 0.6. So that would give us negative 1.9, and then we'd want to do the same thing here. We want our margin to be 6 inches, so we'd take our horizontal position from center, and we'd want it to be at 1.91 plus 5 plus 0.5, which would give us 1.96. I'm sorry. That would get us 2.41. Okay, and now we just have to add our vertical grid lines. And now we can insert our content boxes. And there we go. Now we have our 1 column, 2 column, and 3 column layouts. And if we exit Slide Master, you can see that I can select the 2 column layout. I can add and quickly go ahead and add icons in both these content areas. I can go to my 3 column layout. Stretch this over, add a graph. And so that is how you create the basic structure of your slide template. Now I encourage you to go on and keep iterating, create more slides, but for this exercise, we are only going to require you to do these 2 templates or these 2 layouts. So returning back to Slide Master View now, we are going to talk about color. So as talked about in the previous slide, it's really important to try to choose a color palette to stick with and then use that color palette. Now, since I'm doing this lecture for Brigham Young University, I'm going to use their color palette that they have. And if you're lucky, you can actually find the color palette of the organization that you're working for. It's best practice if you create a slide deck for another organization to use their colors and their design tips that they give. Right here, if I go to BYU's branding page, I can see that I have all their colors with the information that they use. I also can go over here and it'll give me font information that they have. But you don't always have this. So I want to show you how to get this if you can't find a company's branding guide. So here I'm going to go to the Marriott School website. And what I'll do is I'm going to take a screenshot of what their colors are. So I'll just take a simple screenshot here. That should give me this color and that color. And I'm going to go back to PowerPoint. I'll paste that screenshot in. I'm just going to create a random shape. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the eyedropper tool on that screenshot to sample what the color is. I'm going to then go to the fill of that shape. And then when I go to the fill, I want to find this hexadecimal code. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy this hexadecimal. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Slide Master and I'm going to go to Colors and I'm going to go to Customize Colors. And then for Accent 1, I want to make that the same color. I want to make that the same as their primary color. So for Accent 1, I'm going to come down here to the hex. I'm going to paste in that hex value. And now that gives me BYU's primary color as my Accent 1. I'll do the exact same thing for Accent 2. I'm going to sample it. I'm going to go look at the fill. I'm going to find what the hexadecimal is of it. I'm going to go back to Slide Master. I'm going to go to Color, Customize Color. Going to go to my second accent, and then I'm going to place the hexadecimal in there. And now I have their second color. And then maybe I'll just speed up the process, and for their third color, let's see. This orange looks like a good color to use to differentiate it from the blue. So I'm just going to copy their hexadecimal, and then I'm going to go into Customize Colors. I'm going to go to Accent 3, and then I'm going to paste in the hexadecimal for that color. So if I close out of this and I go back to my slide, you can see now that these charts are automatically updated and they're using the colors I got from BYU's branding website. You also notice if I go over here to Shape Fill, I go to Theme Colors, I have all these colors at my disposal now, and not only do I have these colors at my disposal, but I also have different shades of these colors as well, which is very useful when making different kind of objects on your slide. So returning back to Slide Master, the next thing I want to do is I want to edit the fonts. Now, fonts can be tricky sometimes to find. So going back to BYU's webpage. So if I go to BYU's webpage, what I can do is I can go ahead and inspect the elements. And then I'll click on this header. And I can tell they are using, I can look at the CSS of the webpage and tell that they are using Lato for their header. Now, if you don't have Lato, you can use Helvetica. So I'm going to go back over to Slide Master. I'm going to go to Customize Fonts, and I want my header to be Lato. And then I'll return back here, and I'll go and I'll click on the body text, and I'll look at the CSS, and I can see they're using Proximia Nova. And if you don't have Proximity Nova, you can use Arial. So then I'll go to Fonts and Customize. And then I'll select Proximia Nova. And so then, if you look, it automatically will update all the text for me. I'm going to make this Lato. For my lead lines. And why don't we use BYU's colors? Maybe if we want to add maybe to add more style to this too. If we, let's assume that we're making this deck for BYU. we can go back and add their logo at the bottom of the deck. So let's get a copy of their logo. We'll make it smaller. We'll place it right here. And then we can copy that onto this slide so it cascades. And there you go. That is how you create your own custom slide template. Okay, I know that was a lot, but hopefully that was helpful for all of you. I really encourage you not to only to create your own personal customized template from the ground up, but to continue to iterate on your template, to find ways how to make it better. And as you find that you have new things you need, add those extra layouts in so that you can create decks more quickly. No matter what career you're going into, whether you're going to be a business manager or you're going to be an engineer, I promise you, the ability to be able to create decks will greatly bless your life. You never know when you need to put a presentation together at the last second. And to have a template at hand that allows you to create a deck very quickly and to also have it look professionally will help you in a lot of different situations. I know for myself, having my own personal template has been a huge blessing, and it's been awesome to iterate on it over the years. I started out with having a very simple template, and as I continued to learn and grow, I kept iterating and iterating on it, and it's helped me tremendously. And I hope to continue iterating on this current template that I'm showing you all here. Now, you don't need to stick around with me for the rest of the video if you don't want to. However, I thought I would show you just kind of my journey of how I got to this point of learning and figuring all this out, how to put this together. So let me start off with showing you the first deck that I created. So during my freshman semester, I competed in I think it was a total of 7 case competitions, and I failed horribly in each one of them. This was the first slide deck I put together, and as you can see, it's not very good at all. But each slide deck I made, I kept iterating on it, and I kept trying to find new ways how to make it better and better. The judges would tear my decks apart, and I would talk to the judges afterwards, and I tried to get as much feedback as I could. I'd talk to upperclassmen to get their inputs, and finally, that led me to my first template. And this deck right here is when I first started using slide templates. I'm calling this version 0 of my own personal template that I had. And this was the first case competition that I competed in where I actually placed and did very well. And as you can see, it does have a somewhat professional look to it. I remember seeing this sidebar on another deck that I saw, and I thought it was really cool. I wanted to add it, had the running agenda in it. And this was version 0 of my slide template. Come around the next year, I was then in the strategy program at BYU, and that's where we really learned how to create effective presentations. Now, my professor had who was really good at creating slide decks. He had a really nice template, so I tried to copy that. As you can see, I iterated on my previous template. This is what I'm calling version 1 of my template. You can see the sidebar is a lot smaller. The text up here is smaller. We're in size 22, has a nice footer. And so you can see this is starting to look a lot more starting to head in that professional direction. However, you may notice alignment is not very good in this. Here is another example of version 1 of my template. And so it looks decent. Then from there, the next year, let me see if I can pull this up. Now this was version 2 of my template. So I did away with the sidebar, and then I decided to put a bar down here instead. And so I would have my lead line up here, my text over here. You can see I started to do a better job with alignment. However, I didn't quite have the grid lines figured out yet, so I was just shooting from the hip. Now, I don't have too many decks I can show you using this template, simply because during this time I was I was actually making slide decks for real companies using real proprietary information. Now, I was a student, I was doing it as a student, I wasn't getting paid or anything, but those decks have proprietary information on it that I can't show you. What I can show you though is I did end up lending this slide template to a group of friends that were creating a case competition. And this is what the result came out to look like. And so you can see this looks a lot more professional than my previous iteration, my version 1 of my template, and is able to convey information very nicely. Fun story. So you don't see it in this deck, but other decks I had in the agenda slide that I had, there was, in one of my classes, a guy from Bain came in and he was a guest speaker, and he gave us a presentation on doing how to do data analysis. And I thought Bain had a really cool agenda. So I tried to create an agenda slide that looked very similar to Bain's. Now, that was before I ended up doing an internship with Bain. Now coming back and having done an internship with Bain, and I try to stay away from using that type of template. And just because I think also, if you notice in going back to version 3 on my deck, this definitely did take inspiration from the way that Bain does agendas, but I really iterated on I found that the way Bain did their agendas really did not allow me to properly describe sub sections, and I know they do have like a feature for that, but I created this agenda from the ground up to better suit my needs. I try to put in my own style on my decks, and I know that this is now version 3 of my slide template. I know that my slide template is very reminiscent of a deck you'd probably see from BCG or from Bain or from LEK. All 3 of those companies, they use a very similar style when creating their decks. Mackenzie uses their own style. I honestly think their style is a little bit too aesthetic for my taste. They do make incredibly beautiful decks, but I really do appreciate the simplicity that the Boston Consulting Group has kind of established, and they kind of created that trend in their slide decks. But this is now version 3 of my deck. This is actually, I've actually iterated on this from last semester. And I have used version 3 in other use cases. For instance, I had my capstone project I had to do last semester, and I ended up using my version 3 template for that. It was really nice just to have this. This was a huge presentation that we had to give at the end of the semester. So it was great to have this on hand to quickly to be able to build out slides with it. And you can see that the slides came out to look very nice, and they really do have more of that professional look to them. But that is just a quick look of my journey of slide decks, how I went from having no idea, basically being fresh out of high school with creating slide templates, to being able to start to create slide decks that really do resemble that higher level of professionalism. And and I know that building these skills has really helped me in all my internships I've been in. I've always very much benefited from having this. I know in my school projects, just the ability to be able to build out effective slide decks has greatly blessed me in all the different group projects that I've have to done. And it's been fun this last year as I prepare to start my career full-time in consulting, to really try to hone and perfect these skills as much as I can. And I'm excited to move forward, and I'm excited to keep iterating on this, personal template that I created. I'm excited to see what, in a couple years, what version 4 will probably look like for me. But that's my story. I hope this was at least somewhat inspiring for you all. Thanks for sticking around with me, and I hope that you're able to have a similar experience where you're able to create your own personal template and iterate on it and see that, have it at hand. And I hope that it really helps you throughout both your educational and professional careers. But that will complete this exercise for today. Thank you very much.